Usually we're talking about how terrible Hollywood is and just absolutely disastrous ideas they have. This is one I'm actually kind of excited about, have some anticipation for. Seemingly has actually some decent people attached to it, people that have some care and love for the property and seemingly want to actually just make good movies without an agenda. And that is the Highlander reboot from director Chad Stahelski that has Henry Cavill attached to it. And director Chad Stahelski recently kind of provided some more information about this long gestating Highlander film that he has been working on since at least 2016. We did just get a brief update. He talked to Josh Horowitz of the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast. But I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of break down a lot of the stuff that he said in the past and why I'm actually pretty excited for it, because I think Highlander, as much as I think I love the first film. I love the whole idea of Highlander. I definitely think it went off the rails, but it's one of those films that I think still has a really good concept, but wasn't executed as good as it could have been and could be executed better. And it's kind of one of those ones where, hey, if you are going to actually do a reboot, try and relaunch a franchise, this is the kind of film that you do it with. You do it with a property like Highlander. Let's get into this, because I do think he has some really interesting ideas that I'm actually excited about. I always found the Highlander mythos quite intriguing. Like I said, it goes back as far as 2016, where it kind of was announced in the Hollywood Reporter. And Stahelski said at the time, "I've been a huge fan of the original property since I saw it in high school. Such great themes of immortality, love, and identity are all wrapped up in such colorful mythology. I can't think of a better property that gives the opportunity to create interesting characters, mythic themes, and action set pieces." I mean, he's 100% right. I mean, Highlander lets you travel to any point in time in history. You can do anything. You can go to feudal Japan. You can go to obviously the Scottish Highlands. We saw a bunch of stuff, right? We got to see like Napoleonic era in France. You saw French Revolution. I mean, they could do. You could even have stuff like the Spanish Civil War. You could have him even potentially be in like Mexican Civil War. You can have him maybe even coming over with like Cortez or something and doing Spanish conquest and everything like that. There could be the Reconquista. I mean, there's so many opportunities that you could have him do. I mean, you could have him back in like Egypt if you wanted to, right? With Cleopatra and Caesar and all that stuff. I mean, lots of awesome things that you could put him into, and it gets you to introduce all of these different characters. You can all have all kinds of different other immortals that he's working with. They're not all going to be kind of like the Kurgan or Connor McLeod types. You can have different types of immortals, different interesting characters. So yeah, I mean, there's a huge sandbox with the Highlander franchise that you have access to, and then obviously action set pieces. Right, first one we saw like the awesome set piece in the Scottish Highlands, and then the crazy fight scenes in urban New York. So I mean, like all those like different kind of it has like that Assassin's Creed vibe going with it, where you can go out to travel to all these different things and gives you all those big action pieces that you can do with. So the huge opportunity here. But he did give a massive update in 2017 when he spoke to Collider. He said, "If you go back and watch the original Highlander, whether the quality holds up or not, or the filmmaking process holds up, there are things about that movie beneath just the shots and the lighting. There's a mythology there. For some reason, it hooks us." He's 100% right here. "We love that world. Everybody loves the immortal realm. Everybody loves the code. There can be only one. There's something about it that hooks you, hooks me, hooks all the fanboys about it. I went so far as I know every episode of all 6 seasons, plus the 7th season if you count Raven as a series, plus the novels. There's something about the world that's hooking. We're currently doing a bit of work on the overall plot." And then he kind of gave an update on where they were in pre-production and everything. He says, "We're currently doing a bit of work on the overall plot structure. When I came on board, they were trying to reinvent the single Highlander property. We've gone since back in, and we would like to really expand the world, so we consider the same shortcomings don't happen again that happened on the original project, meaning you have one great movie and 4 questionable follow-ups. We want to develop a property that can give us," and again, it's not about marketing, it's not so much about the financials, it's about how we can make a more mythological chapter 1, chapter 2. What's a great way to tell this story? He then revealed that he's being inspired by Highlander as well as Star Wars. He said, "I think the TV series hit on a lot of great stuff wasn't in the feature between the Watchers and all the different types of immortals. How do we get this into a feature mode before we dribble it into the TV world? Well, let's restructure it in parts. Let's look at it like it was a TV show. Let's look at it like it was a high-end trilogy. How do we tell the story of the Gathering, the Quickenings, the Immortals, and how do we really build this world out even more so than the original project? That's what we're restructuring right now. It's taking all the good stuff that we had before I was involved in the project from the script, redeveloping the script to give us really good chapters 1, 2, and 3, and expanding the world. So it clearly sounds like he has ideas to take this outside of a single feature, maybe bounce it into television as well, and then or maybe even do a main trilogy and then have other side stories in a TV show, maybe similar to what he's doing with John Wick, right? He has like the John Wick movies, and then you have like the side story with the Continental and things like that. Maybe like a spin-off movie that they're doing, like the Ballerina and stuff like that. Sounds like he's trying to structure it similar to what he's doing now with John Wick. As for Star Wars, he said the vision we're trying to get across and what we're trying to develop, I equate very close to Star Wars. The first one is a very satisfying ending, but it does leave the door open, and that's kind of how I see this. I would really like to expand it over 3. I see the Gathering happening over 3. So, again, his idea is that he wants a trilogy in the movie theaters, right? It's tricky, don't get me wrong. That's why we're still developing it. We want to be able to tell 3 complete stories that all kind of fit. I think the Star Wars trilogy, at least up to The Empire Strikes Back, is a good example of how we want to process it. You hear that a lot lately now. A lot of people kind of panning Return of the Jedi. I actually think I understand that criticism, especially because they're just redoing the whole Death Star thing. But the Death Star isn't that's like the big action set piece where everything happens. But the Return of the Jedi has a very different emotional beat, and it really has that heart to it where you get Luke throwing down his lightsaber when he's getting zapped by the Emperor's Force lightning. And it really kind of elevates the trilogy, brings it full circle. You get the redemption of Darth Vader. You get him tossing Sidious down, but he obviously ends up dying as well from the Force lightning and everything like that. But he does ask for forgiveness. Luke forgives him, plays that kind of priestly character, forgives him, and then you get the celebration at the end. Whether or not you can criticize that it takes place on a second Death Star, sure. Ewoks, sure. But it has really strong emotional beats, really hits home with the family dynamic as well. And I think does indeed culminate the trilogy excellently. And since I've gotten older, I actually have way more respect for Return of the Jedi. And it's probably the fact that you have that beat that mirrors Boromir and Aragorn in Fellowship of the Ring. Obviously, those are 2 friends or 2 warrior combatants with each other that have that kind of warrior bond as they're fighting for Frodo and everything. And then obviously Boromir knows that he's done something wrong, has that confession scene in the woods there with Aragorn, whereas Luke and Vader are father and son. But it's very, very similar, those very similar emotional beats. And I think that does indeed push it over a lot of what Empire does. And I think if you don't recognize that, that is a true failing on an individual level, because I do think that does indeed emotionally elevate Return of the Jedi, and I think that is a huge reason why people are attracted to Star Wars, whether or not they recognize it or not. But nevertheless, he goes on. He talks about kind of how they're designing the film. And he says, if Heads Coming Apart is an R grade, if Heads Coming Apart is a PG grade, ratings are second to what we're going to do. Highlander, I think the action is, at least what it's in my head, is going to fall on a line for sure. We want to design it what we think is aesthetically cool. And so far, I've met no resistance. They're like, look, whatever you did with John Wick with the gun stuff, we want you to try and do with the sword stuff. We want you to make something cool and something unique and something that's going to make audiences say, wow, I haven't seen that before. I'm actually really excited for this as well. I think there's been a huge gap in the market for some really awesome swordplay fighting. I think Star Wars kind of had that kind of capitalized with a lot of their lightsaber duels and stuff. But if I'm being honest, a lot of that stuff has been really bad, poorly choreographed. You're getting better stuff with the Daredevil TV show on Netflix. Way better fight scenes and stuff like that. So I think there's a huge opportunity here to kind of dominate in kind of that. I think that's something that action fans want and we're missing. And I think there's a huge opportunity to kind of deliver that, especially if you place it in the Highlander mythology. So We also, back in 2021, Henry joined the project, and this is what he wrote on his Instagram here. He says, "Very exciting news today. I've been a fan of Highlander since I was a lad. From the movies and all of their 80s Queen slathered glory to the TV show with an actor who looked remarkably like one of my brothers." Talking about Adrian Paul there. "Being not shy with swords and having a director as talented as Chad Stahelski at the helm, this is an opportunity like no other. Deep diving into franchise storytelling with all the tools at our disposal is going to make this an adventure, and hopefully all of you shall never forget." Following this announcement, Cavill shared some details about Stahelski's vision for the film with The Hollywood Reporter's James Hibbard, who reported Cavill says Stahelski's vision is a more grounded, in reality take than the original movies and show, and will play a bit more like a modern tragedy, while the director says there were several reasons there could be only one actor for the role. I think the idea of that, where he's like describing it as a modern tragedy, is this idea that immortality is a burden. We've seen Stahelski kind of talk about that a lot. So that does kind of make sense if you look at it from that perspective. And I do think that is something that you see kind of in the Highlander movies, especially that first movie, that burden of what the prize is and what it entails. And that's a lot of the instruction you get from Sean Connery's character to Christopher Lambert's Connor McLeod. But Stahelski explained why he wanted Cavill. He said, "Henry obviously has the physicality, but that doesn't mean a whole lot if you can't also carry the empathy of a character that's lived 500 years, and I needed somebody who could do both. The character's arc spans hundreds of years, and he becomes many different personalities, all of which extend the timeline of his emotional growth. Then, during our first meeting, my suspicions were confirmed. Henry was immediately riffing on the idea of the burden of immortality, and you could see in his eyes that he can transform himself from being a young, vibrant soul to an old, wise soul. He had this combination I was fascinated by. The other thing you could see was his genuineness. He really loves the property and loves what he believes he can do with it. And when an actor has that level of passion, you're going to get something unique. And finally, you've met him, after 10 minutes, you're just like, he's cool. I want to hang out with this guy." So, yes, indeed. And there you have it, right? The burden of immortality. So huge praise for Henry Cavill. I think anyone who's seen him in The Witcher, seen him in Man of Steel, knows that he can definitely kind of pull that off, have that young, vibrant soul to an old, wise soul for sure. So as I said at the top, we did get some recent new comments here as part of this Happy, Sad, Confused with Josh Horowitz. This is what he said. He said, "I think we have some very good elements of power. The trick is when you have the tagline, there can be only one. You just can't everybody in the first movie. You can't introduce everyone. You can't have everyone, right? You're going to be introducing characters in the second film, third film, like that. You're going to have potentially different antagonists. If he beats the main antagonist in the first one, you obviously could have another antagonist that's out there as well. Remember they had like one locked away in some like cavern or whatever that was eventually unlocked by archaeologists to come out and fight him in one of those sequels. I don't remember which one. He then said, "We're looking to do our story, engages a lot of the same characters and stuff like that, but we've also brought in elements of all the TV shows, and we're trying to do a bit of a prequel, a setup for the gathering, so we have room to grow the property." So I'm guessing this is maybe, when he's talking prequel, we're going to be definitely set in a time period piece, and you wouldn't have maybe the time jump, and you stay maybe within the Scottish Highlands if they are indeed rebooting, and you're having Henry as Connor McLeod or something like that. So I think that's a potential where they might be going, is kind of what I'm getting from that. Maybe it is kind of like you do start him off in New York and he's like reflecting on a past time. Maybe he's like meditating in the church like he did in the first film, where he went and prayed and everything like that. So that could be a possibility too, where you get like he goes to the church, he meditates, he's getting prepared for the gathering, and he's kind of reflecting on like a previous time, but it just takes place in that time. Before the gathering happens or something like that. That could be a way to tell it, but you stay primarily in the past. Similar to how like Assassin's Creed would do it. You go to the Animus and you stay in the Animus and you don't come out of the Animus. He says, "If we get our crap together and we pull it off the feature, we have ideas for days about how to make the coolest characters and make that an epic TV show. I just think that's a rich material. When you can pick any period in time, any nationality, any culture, any type of person, and make them immortal that have to duel and deal with the burden of immortality, that's effing cool to me." So indeed, I'm actually really excited. I think Stahelski's saying all the right things. I think the John Wick stuff is fun, action-packed stuff. I think the storytelling could probably be improved for sure, but it is what it is. And then obviously you've got Henry Cavill attached to it. I think he's one of the, if not one of the biggest actors out there in Hollywood now, and definitely has a huge pull. But it should be. I'm excited about this. I think there's a lot of potential. I hope that I'm not getting my expectations too high. Again, we are dealing with Hollywood here, so that is a possibility. But I'm actually pretty excited about this. I think there's huge potential. I would really like to see what Chad Stahelski and Henry do, and hopefully this WGA and the SAG-AFTRA strike concludes. At least for this. I mean, I'm fine. Like, get rid of all the other crap that we're getting right with Marvel and Star Wars and all that stuff. It's fine. Delay that stuff. But this is one of the things that I do wish we could get going and really get to see it in theaters. And then potentially get, obviously, that TV spinoff and the trilogy. But let me know what you think. Are you interested in what Chad Stahelski and Henry Cavill have up their sleeves for Highlander? And what kind of ideas do you have? Do you think that they are coming out of this interview? I mean, obviously, I know I'm putting a lot of assumptions onto kind of what they're saying, and building up my own expectations here. But what do you make of what they're saying here? Leave a comment below. Let me know. If you like more videos like this, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell for notifications.
Subscribe for more.